Before we start in on our topic, do we want to do our normal reading the sequences thing?
I think we have to. We're contractually obligated.
Yeah.
Damn, those contracts are harsh, man.
Well, at least this one's fun. So,
Yeah.
first one was Radical Honesty, which the quick overview is that he's much harsher of it than we were on the episode that we talked about. Well, actually, I wasn't on that episode, but when this podcast covered it, we had proponents of it, and I think that I was interested in his take on the idea. Mm-hmm. So, let's dive right in.
We'll link our episode as well.
Or you can just search Radical Honesty.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Oh, I haven't updated our archive page in a while, though. I should do that.
Yeah.
So, yes, the Radical Honesty post, he starts out basically just saying Crocker's rules are great. They're a mirror image of Radical Honesty, where you, rather than telling the whole truth to people, you always strive to allow others to tell you the complete truth without being offended, which I just bring up because I know you, Stephen, are a big fan of Crocker's rules, and you try to invoke them often.
Yeah, we've talked about it here on the show, too. I think, I don't think I mentioned it before, to anybody, but like,
title.
Maybe it would be something to bring up. I think I mentioned an episode or two ago, when David messaged me and he's like, "Hey, you're misusing the word, I think misnomer or something." Mm. And he's like, "Would you mind if would you be offended if I corrected him?" I'm like, "No, fuck no, tell me." Mm-hmm. I should, I could just have like as my status, or like my reply to that could have just been a link to the Wikipedia page for Crocker's rule. Cool.
Yeah.
I think
I liked what you said about that, where you were like, other people would be like, "Oh, you're trying to make me look stupid," and get all mad about it, and you're like, "No, I already look stupid. Now I'll look less stupid if you like tell me what the correct version is." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's like basically how I wish everyone would respond to criticism, where it's just like, oh, am I doing something wrong? I would like to be better. Please help."
Right, and the thing, Crocker's rule is the kind of thing that works with certain kinds of relationships.
Yeah, like assuming the person was trying to do that in good faith and not like
exactly.
It's there.
It's not an open invitation to be an asshole.
Apostrophe.
But it's like, do you want feedback on this and not have me spend 30 minutes dancing around it? It's like, yeah, totally. Just give me the 5-second version. So,
kind of wish more of the world invoked Crocker's rules, just because I have a lot of anxiety sometimes, like trying to tell people something that I don't think they're going to take well, and I end up just not doing it and living with this thing about them that keeps grating on me or whatever, and it's not great.
Oh yeah.
And like 90% of the time, once I do actually bring it up, they're like, "Oh, yeah, that's fine. Thanks for telling me." Like, God damn it!
This whole time.
Yeah.
All right, so next thing, where you said that he's rather harsh on Radical Honesty, the quote that I pulled that I think is what you're getting at is he says, "I wonder whether practitioners of Radical Honesty tend to become more adept at self-deception as they stop being able to tell white lies or admit private thoughts to themselves," which is a hell of a take, which I wish I had thought of myself, because if it becomes really uncomfortable to tell people the truth, but you have this philosophical commitment to only say the truth, maybe you start lying to yourself without knowing it.
This is, I should mention, they're talking about Blanton's take on, like, the original person that coined the term radical honesty. And that's the one that I disagree with, too, where it was literally just, like, brain to mouth. Whatever random ass thought pops into your head, say it.
Oh, God.
Like, you go up to Starbucks and you're like, "Hey, I'd like a latte." Nice ass, by the way. Like, that's obviously not the type of radical honesty that I practice or endorse.
Yeah, I'm glad you reminded me of that, because I feel like that's almost a straw man. And like, even if it is the original, like,
yeah,
that it's still like, all right,
it's
cool.
A straw man of itself.
Yeah, your original was straw as fuck, because there's a difference between being able to be forthcoming with people in a way that you feel good about and just having no filter.
I feel that even makes you almost like slightly less human to literally remove the filter between your brain and your mouth. That's part of where your introspection and your inner life comes from, is the monitoring of your own thoughts.
I've done a lot of work towards being able to say, like, kind of what you were saying a minute ago, Inuyasha, it being hard to give people criticism or, like, admit certain things. But I've had a lot of good progress towards being able to say, like, I have this thought, I don't endorse it, but, like, I have this anxiety thought that's, like, saying this, can you tell me something, that counters this so I can stop having this thought? And that's the kind of thing that you need to have that level of, okay, like, stop, notice you're having a thought. Do you endorse this thought or not? Where is it coming from? Like, this is, this whole, like, skill that will help improve your self-knowledge, your relationships with others. I think it's an interesting social experiment to try to do this sort of thing, and, like, but yeah, I would never try to do this as like a life philosophy.
It'd be a great way to get your ass kicked or slapped or something, right?
Yeah. He suggested only being radically honest with others who have also taken the vow of radical honesty.
Which is essentially just like two people who have openly said we can apply Crocker's rules to this conversation.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is basically what Jace's version of radical honesty entails.
Yeah, you want the consent of the other person. Like, I don't think the other person has to be practicing radical honesty or whatever, but like, I at least like try to like if I'm real with you, is that gonna offend you, or like do you want to hear a possibly a thought that might be hard to hear, a difficult thought, like.
It feels a lot like radical body acceptance. We're like, yeah, it's a good thing, but there's social rules against walking around naked. And if you have accepted your body that radically that you're comfortable walking around naked, you still got to remember that other people are not in that space yet. And we have laws.
My main thing is that I just think it was fun because this was the first time I'd heard about it, and I feel like the concept has evolved to a much more likable and defensible position rather than just word vomit. Like, what was your phrase, Jace? Brain to mouth? Yeah, that's perfect. That is not how anyone ought to conduct themselves, I think, in real life. So the version now seems to be like the grown up version of it, and I like it more.
Yeah. He ends with saying that I think it was near the end, that maybe radical honesty would be best reserved for matters that are sacred to a rationalist. Then he points out in some domains this is already the case. We believe that scientists should tell the whole truth about science, in italics. It's one thing to lie in everyday life, lie to your boss, lie to the police, lie to your lover, but whoever lies in a journal article is guilty of heresy and will be excommunicated. Which, first of all, I love that concept, and up until, maybe a few months ago I would have cheered, and now instead I made the crying eyes emoji after this, because, first we have China with their just literal blatant paper mills where they make up fake science to get a publication.
I heard about that in the Mind Killer. That was hilarious and so sad.
And then just a few days ago, Wes posted in our Discord a thing, which we'll probably bring up in the next Mind Killer, about the replication crisis. Mm-hmm. And a guy read over 2,000 papers and came to the conclusion that most scientists kind of know. They have not been misled by p-hacking. They kind of know their papers probably bullshit, and everyone else cites papers without even reading the papers. They just look at the title and say,
yep. Everybody in the industry knows about it. It's like the replication crisis was pointed out by people in the industry, and it's I'm glad that at least it's something that is talked about openly and people are trying to address. Yeah. And I think even the Chinese paper mills, which it sucks, but on the other hand, it's like, oh, good, this is going to make it necessary to do replication.
Yeah. I hope there's a lot more replication. Because right now it looks like pretty much everybody is guilty of some level of heresy and no one has been excommunicated. And this makes me sad.
I think
more excommunications.
I think a few years ago there was an episode of Julia Galef on Rationally Speaking. I forget who their guest was, so I couldn't cite this, but it was talking about their replication crisis, and this person was involved in a project to basically say, I commit to publishing this paper before I do the experiment. And so whatever the result is, I will publish it. And that will help, not necessarily just with replication, but with p-hacking. Mm-hmm. And then they were like, our goal here is to get a little badge on every site where you go look for stuff and says, yep, this has the badge of they committed to publishing this.
Yeah, cool. Pre-registering your hypothesis. This is already...
It's already a sacred value of science, but actually doing
it's already being done.
Oh, good.
A lot of in clinical research.
Nice. Yeah, this could have been almost 10 years ago when I heard this episode. So
don't most journals not publish negative results though?
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
But any online repository of journal articles or of findings, I guess. Yeah. That's what an insane incentive there. It'd be one thing for some lesser domain, but for science to say, no, we're only going to publish the interesting, positive stuff. It's what are you fucking talking about? Mm-hmm. Finding there's nothing there is very valuable.
Yeah.
At the very least, it'll save other people from digging in there, unless they find fault with the way we did it, right?
Absolutely.
God.
Yeah. All right, so that radical honesty discussion went a number of places. I had originally pitched we should just skip this since we did an episode on it, but I'm glad we didn't.
It was all new stuff.
Yeah.
This one was kind of fun. We don't really want your participation. It sounded condescending as hell at a glance, and I think it's defensible, especially with the last sentence in the post.
Yeah, I think it's a deliberately inflammatory title. Which, I don't know. I actually sort of love those. I forget what... It was BuzzFeed or something. There was one of those, major online publications that for a while was doing this trolling article style of, actually, like, the truth is that pickles are terrible and people who eat them are bad people, and here's why, or something like that. Like, it was just, like, excessively, like, one person's pet peeve that they, like, wrote as though, okay, look, we all know that this anyway.
Mike Birbiglia does a thing like that when he's talking about late people.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's like, and they're so racist. That's the other thing about them, too. Late people are so racist. He just keeps horns affecting everything onto people who can't be on time.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, who wants to sum this one up?
Well, I suppose I could do it.
All right, somebody has to.
All right. So there was, he was at the Singularity Summit. These next two posts are about this conference of people working in AI stuff. And a question came from the audience at the end of a panel, and there was an artist asking, hey, what can we do as artists to help in this process?
Yeah, well, that they were saying, a bunch of speakers were like, oh, we should reach out to artists and poets and get them to participate. And then a woman stands up, like, hey, I'm an artist, what can I do?
Yeah. And then he says, no, you misunderstand. He didn't actually say this, but he's like, this is what my thought process was. Because there was just sort of an uncomfortable silence after that question. He says, we're just calling for greater participation by artists. We can get plenty of credit for being enlightened just by issuing the call. If we really cared what artists thought, we would find some artists and ask them questions, not call for artists to participate. We don't actually want to hear from artists. We think your opinions are stupid. Which, it's kind of mean, but on the other hand, if you're an artist, there's not much input you can give directly on issues of programming and AI.
And, so in a way that makes this not condescending, look at it from the other side. Like, if there was a panel on advancing some mathematical domains, and they are like, Steven, what do you think? It'd be like, why the fuck are you asking me? You don't want my participation. Right.
Or just, like, someone from a completely different domain. Like, if you imagine there's some kind of art theory, like... Yeah. I don't know, like, it's a Monet appreciation conference, and they're like, hey, AI developer, come over here. What do you think about, is this, like, the Impressionism?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, they definitely don't want my opinion on that. I went to some art walk a few years ago, and I was just offendedly aghast at how expensive everything was. And then I went to real museums with real art are fun. I went to the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and it's like, there were black and white pictures of, like, gum melting off the edge of a table. And I'm like, squint? Like, that's not art. Like, is it? If this is art, then what the fuck isn't art? Like, art, we know what art is. It's cool shapes and colors. It's not, like, sure, that meant something to somebody, but, like, I feel like there's some railing on art later in the sequences, but I have no grasp of it. So anyone who wanted my opinion, they don't want really my participation in the conversation.
I think one of the reasons art is so expensive, I mean, there's many signaling reasons and stuff, but I think one of them is just that, like, people almost never buy art. So for an artist to make any sort of a living at all, they have to charge an outrageously high price, so that one of the few times someone buys something, they're like, oh, good, I can eat for 3 weeks.
Well, right. Often it's also actually an hourly wage plus the materials used. People don't realize how long it takes to do an oil painting or how much work it is. Like, I have a friend that is a professional oil painter and sort of, like, almost sells her stuff at cost if you consider an hourly wage and the amount of the materials. And like, it's paintings that range from, like, $300 to $700.
Nice. And not just that, like, the years of practice it took to get that skill.
Yeah, that too. I mean,
like, I'm always reminded of the lock picker who comes over here, opens your lock up in a matter of under a minute, and he's like, that'll be $60. And you're like, for 1 minute of work? And he's like, if you want to spend 10 years learning how to pick locks, then you also can get paid $60 for 1 minute of work plus 10 years of learning. And yeah, art is very much a thing that takes a long time to master.
I don't think that gum picture took that much time or money to make.
Probably not, but
what about that urinal? There was like and it's like, you stole a urinal?
For a urinal or for a gum picture to be considered art, it has to be framed by someone who already has a huge name as an artist, and that takes a lot of effort to get.
I think a lot of the art price, too, at least at the high level, is just money laundering.
Yeah. Hey, and once you get to the really high levels.
Yeah. Hey, you took a picture of whatever, a drawing of yourself. Great, I'll give you $10 million for it. Wink, wink,
man,
nudge, nudge.
That? I'm trying to remember the name of it. There's a movie on Netflix that I want to recommend. It was about like professional visual artists, and it's like a murder mystery. But the thing is that it's like the friend I was talking about, who's an oil painter, and I'm like technically an artist, I guess. We're watching this and just laughing our asses off because the point of the movie is everyone is just so incredibly pretentious and like living in their own weird art world that even though there's like murders and weird shit going on, like it sort of is in the background of the other drama that's going on in their lives. Let me see if I can find the name of it.
For anyone who is not familiar, Jace made the logo for the Bayesian conspiracy, but he's just technically maybe sort of an artist, he guesses. So.
I mean, I don't do professional art currently.
Yeah,
I guess that doesn't count. Oh, it's called Velvet Buzzsaw.
It's not like you stopped being an actor just because you were only in one movie.
Fair. Okay.
He professionally made this art, and everyone loves it.
Anyway, this movie's called Velvet Buzzsaw. It's very weird and funny. I recommend it. But
right on.
Back to the post.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's sort of the whole point of the post, where it's just sort of, we don't need people from like cross genres coming in and giving their opinions. It's not like maybe zero value, but what Eliezer I think was trying to point out is that like we were doing a signaling thing. And then like I think that this sort of leads into applause lights.
Yeah.
Did either of you have more to say about participation?
Pretty much all I had.
Yeah. I mean, he mentions how, like, bizarrely, not condescending, but how uncomfortable it would be for someone to show him an art and be like, say something and be like, oh, it's beautiful, I love the symmetry. No, say something mathematical, you're a mathematician.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, I don't have anything unlike that to say. Like, what are you asking, what are you soliciting my opinion in that domain for? It just, so like, even if you reverse it, I think he put that in there so it's not just seeming like he's besmirching one area. He's saying this does work in reverse. Like, you can't just like ask somebody for a token opinion.
I didn't take this as a dig on art at all. I think that was, he was trying to make sure that he wasn't like being misrepresented that way either.
Totally.
But
I kind of like how he gave an example of them doing applause lights by saying we call on artist participation, and then the very next post is called applause lights.
Yeah, I actually forgot about we don't want your participation, but applause lights is one of those ones that once you hear it, you'll never forget it. This is another one about the Singularity Summit. And one of the speakers called for democratic, multinational development of artificial intelligence.
And so Eliezer asked for some more details, outlined some specific scenarios, like would more like this or more like this. And the speaker was like, I don't know. What?
Yeah, I think the two scenarios were almost worth laying out. Let me, I want to find the whole thing. Basically, it was like, would you rather have an AI that is built by everybody, like they all get to vote on how it's made, or
like
once it's made?
Every human in the world is given a cell phone number where they can answer some questions or something.
And that was the second option, where like just everybody on the planet gets to vote on how this works out.
And the first option was more like a committee of representatives.
It actually says, suppose a group of rebel nerds develops an AI in their basement and instructs the AI to poll everyone in the world, dropping cell phones to anyone who doesn't have one, and do whatever the majority says. Which do you think is more democratic? And would you feel safe with either?
Yeah, and the first option he gave was something like a United Nations committee something. Designed
by committee. Yeah. Always a great idea.
And the guy was like...
Excellent products.
Yeah. And the guy basically had no answers for him. And then Eliezer says in the post, look, the substance of a democracy is the specific mechanism that resolves policy conflicts. If all groups had the same preferred policies, there would be no need for democracy. We would automatically cooperate. The resolution process can be a direct majority vote, or an elected legislature, or even a voter-sensitive behavior of an artificial intelligence, but it has to be something. What does it mean to call for a democratic solution if you don't have a conflict resolution mechanism in mind? I think it means that you have said the word democracy, so the audience is supposed to cheer. It's not so much a propositional statement or belief as the equivalent as it is as... Sorry. It's not so much a propositional statement or belief as the equivalent of the applause light that tells a studio audience when to clap. This case is remarkable only in that I mistook the applause light for a policy suggestion with subsequent embarrassment for all.
Yeah, and if, just in case you don't get the reference, often like live action TV, or I don't know if they do this anymore probably, but like they will instruct the audience when to react in the way that they want them to react to whatever the speaker's saying. So there used to actually just be a big, like, was it a neon sign that just said applause, and they would light it up and then darken it?
I mean, I guess they probably still have applause lights for shows like the Colbert.
I was going to say for late night shows.
I think they just have canned laughter. No, they do. They still film them in front of...
Yeah, they'd film in front of a live audience. Those types of shows, the whole David Letterman, Jay Leno style shows where bring people on and interview them and have comedians and shit.
I don't know very much about that, but I do remember recently I was watching a show about the creation of a show. It was Meta, and they had like, it was actually, I think, like 6 people sitting in a row, like in front of the stage, but like, and I guess the rest was CGI'd in, or they only ever like just turned the camera slightly so you saw sort of the backs of the first people's heads, but it was supposed to look like there was a studio audience when they're like, yeah, weird.
Cool.
It's weird that like, the whole idea of a studio audience is weird, but anyway, I'm getting off topic.
I mean, I'm glad we're not doing this in front of people. So I like his...
We could have Drake just like sit here and watch us.
Every now and then we'll flash an applause light and he claps.
Hold up a sign.
Yeah. I like the reversal test to see if this is to check if something is an applause light, and it's like just if someone says something and you just reverse the intent of the statement, is it completely pointless and ridiculous? If so, it's probably an applause light. So he gives, for example, suppose someone says, we need to balance AI risks and opportunities of AI. If you reverse this statement, you would get, we shouldn't balance the risks and opportunities of AI. Since the reversal sounds abnormal, the unreversed statement is probably normal, implying it does not convey new information. It's just an applause light.
Yeah.
I've seen applause lights in real life, and I think I probably brought this up years ago when it happened. And I mean, you see them all the time.
Yeah,
but
especially after reading this article, suddenly they're everywhere.
I was just at a party at someone's house years ago, and we were playing like Cards Against Humanity or something, and people would just say things that were like, if you asked,
it's all applause lights.
Yeah, and it was so like
it's kind of
unnerving.
Anti-applause lights if it's Cards Against Humanity.
It depends on the group you're playing with.
Yeah, they would be like,
well, I mean, like,
not in America or something that was like
yeah.
prison something, and then like everyone laughs, and some people might have literally clapped. Maybe that made it seem so surreal. And it's like that's like the easiest potshot joke, and you're not trying to do, this wasn't like the same thing as like a reversal test. This wouldn't pass that, but like it was just so weird, just like
I'm glad
it was like really cheap
Cards Against
stand-up.
Humanity.
Yeah.
Like it was apples to apples originally. Like there's so many parties I went to that like everyone's like, oh my god, let's play this. It's the funniest thing. I was just like, it's not. It's really not.
I've grown to unhate it now because when you only play it like maybe once every couple years, it's pretty good. It's the fact that like it seemed to be the only thing everyone wanted to do for the longest time, and like any gathering would devolve into playing Cards Against Humanity. And I was like, oh god, I'm so sick of it. How many times can you make Hitler jokes?
The one time I did find it really funny was when I played it with my parents.
Okay.
Because they're just so insulated from anything that like
they're like, what is a bigger, blacker dick?
Yeah, it was funny seeing which things they didn't like recognize or didn't know what to do with, and then also having them like sort of aggressively play a card and they'll just be like, oh my god, mom. Anyway, yeah.
That actually sounds like a lot of fun. Next opportunity I get, I'm going to play with my family. Minus my grandmother. I won't expose her to...
Maybe apples to apples for grandma.
Yeah, we've done that before.
Okay.
But I feel like Cards Against Humanity would just be really funny. I'll put some horrifying shit out, and they'll be aghast, and it'll make me
Every
smile.
time you draw cards, my parents would cringe and go, oh no, can I put this one back? No, I don't.
Rush Limbaugh's soft, shitty body.
That's mean.
That was one of the cards.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, it's mean, but like a lot of them are mean.
Yes, they
like
are.
A windmill of corpses, like just random bullshit. It's perfect.
Okay.
All right. I believe that is all the things we have. And yeah, people who are not familiar with the applause lights concept before now will probably start seeing a lot more of it.
And read the post. It's funny.
Yeah. All right. For next time, we have the episodes Rationality and the English Language and Human Evil and Muddled Thinking.
Those sound fun.
Hell yeah.
Everyone buckle up. Or they'll under-deliver. I probably remember the content. I just remember the titles of either of these. So that'll be fun.